The Celestial Academic Council's annual symposium was, without question, the most pretentious gathering in the known galaxy. Picture this, a space station the size of Manhattan, decorated entirely in what can only be described as aggressively intellectual, lots of floating holograms, unnecessary mood lighting, and enough marble to make a Greek philosopher weep with envy. Today's main event, the official declaration of humanity's extinction. Professor Glorbik stood at the podium, all three of his eyes glistening with what he probably thought was humble dignity, but came across more like smug satisfaction. His tentacles adjusted his ceremonial sash for the 14th time. The guy had been waiting for this moment his entire career. "Esteemed colleagues," Glorbik began, his translator rendering his voice in that annoyingly smooth tone that all self-important academics somehow manage to achieve. After 50 standard years of comprehensive observation, exhaustive analysis, and peer-reviewed documentation, I'm honored to present our final conclusion on the Sol 3 species, known as Homo sapiens. The audience of several hundred alien academics leaned forward in their various seats, perches, and hovering arrangements. This was it, the big moment. "They are extinct," applause erupted. Not polite applause, mind you, but the kind of thunderous celebration usually reserved for sports victories or successful evacuations. Glorbik basked in it like a three-eyed lizard under a heat lamp. "My 17 published volumes on the subject have concluded definitively that the complete radio silence from Earth, the absence of any spacefaring activity, and the deterioration of their satellite network can mean only one thing: total societal collapse, followed by extinction." He paused for dramatic effect. "Perhaps they finally discovered nuclear weapons, perhaps a pandemic, perhaps they simply gave up. We may never know." More applause. Someone in the back was literally crying tears of academic joy. The ceremony continued with all the pageantry of a galactic funeral no one was actually sad about. They unveiled a holographic memorial, a bronzish human figure reaching dramatically toward the stars with the inscription, "They tried." Someone had commissioned a symphony. It was terrible, but everyone pretended to appreciate it because that's what you do at fancy academic functions. Glorbik accepted his Lifetime Achievement Award, his Medal of Scientific Excellence, and a rather large check from the Galactic Preservation Fund. He'd made an entire career studying dead civilizations, but humanity was his magnum opus, his white whale, his masterpiece. In conclusion, Glorbik said, wiping away what might have been a genuine tear, "Let us remember humanity not for how they ended, but for their fascinating journey. They showed such promise, such potential, and yet, like so many species before them, they could not overcome their own limitations." The crowd nodded solemnly, already mentally composing their own papers citing Glorbik's work. "Let this serve as a lesson to us all," he continued. "Intelligence alone is not enough. Wisdom, cooperation, and humility are—" That's when the proximity alarms went off. Not the gentle, "Please be aware of incoming traffic" chime, but the full-blown "Something just appeared way too close to this station" klaxon that made everyone's equivalent of sphincters clench simultaneously. Vrex, the station administrator, scrambled to his console, his 6 arms flying across multiple screens. "Unknown vessel requesting docking permission at Bay 7, he announced, his voice cracking slightly. It's transmitting identification codes from Earth." The room went silent. You could have heard a pin drop, assuming anyone still used pins. "Impossible," Glorbik said, his middle eye twitching. "It must be a probe, an automated system finally failing after 50 years. "It's requesting verbal confirmation," Vrex said, looking confused. "The transmission says, and I quote, 'Hey, is this thing on? Can someone let me in? It's freezing out here.'" Glorbik's tentacles went rigid. "Grant permission. We must examine this relic immediately." The docking bay doors opened with a hiss that sounded almost reluctant, as if the station itself knew things were about to get weird. The assembled academics rushed to the observation deck overlooking Docking Bay 7. pressing their various facial structures against the reinforced glass like kids at an aquarium. Glorbix was at the front, naturally, his breathing holes flaring with what he'd later describe as scientific anticipation, but was actually just panic. The ship that had docked was, to put it generously, a mess. It looked like someone had built a spacecraft using parts from 7 different vessels, held together with what appeared to be actual duct tape. Humanity's finest engineering on full display. The hull was scorched, dented, and covered in stickers that no one could read yet, but would later turn out to say things like, "My other ship is also a piece of junk," and "honk if you love existential dread." Probably just going to be automated systems, Glorbix muttered, trying to convince himself more than anyone else. Perhaps a maintenance robot. Maybe even some frozen colonists from before the collapse. The airlock cycled. Steam hissed dramatically because apparently Earthships still ran on systems that did that. The door opened. Out walked a human, a living, breathing, undeniably alive human wearing a gray hoodie, jeans with holes in the knees, and sneakers that had definitely seen better days. He had a backwards baseball cap on his head and was holding what appeared to be a sandwich in one hand and a coffee cup was in the other. He took a bite of the sandwich, chewed thoughtfully, and looked around the docking bay with the casual interest of someone waiting for a bus. "So," the human said, his voice echoing through the communication system, I heard you guys threw us a funeral. That's awkward." Glorbix made a sound that his species, typically reserved for discovering their taxes, had been calculated incorrectly. The human walked toward the observation deck, apparently unconcerned by the hundreds of alien eyes, stalks, and sensory organs locked onto him. He pressed the door button, waited patiently for it to open, and stepped into the corridor like he owned the place. "Hey there," he said, giving a little wave that still somehow held the coffee cup. "Marcus Webb, Earth, well, technically I'm from Ohio, but I guess that's not super relevant right now. Nice station you got here. Very fancy. Love the marble. Bit much, but you know you do you." The silence was so profound that several academics forgot to breathe their respective atmospheric requirements. Marcus looked around at the frozen crowd, then at the stage behind them with its holographic memorial still floating majestically. He squinted at the inscription. "They tried?" He read it out loud. "Seriously? That's what you went with? Not even, here lies humanity? They had a good run? Just they tried? That's the participation trophy of epitaphs, my guy." Glorbix finally found his voice, though it came out about 3 octaves higher than usual. You cannot be real. This is impossible. Humanity is extinct. I have 17 published volumes that say so." Marcus took another bite of his sandwich. "Yeah, about that. Got some good news and some bad news. Good news is we're not extinct. Bad news is your books are basically fancy toilet paper now. Well, fancy recycling, I guess. Do you guys recycle? Please tell me you recycle." "But the radio silence," stammered a 4-armed academic from the Andromeda sector. "The complete cessation of all space activity, the deterioration of your infrastructure, 50 years of nothing." "Oh, that," Marcus said, nodding like someone had just reminded him he'd forgotten to return a library book. "Yeah, we should probably talk about that. Is there somewhere we can sit, maybe get some snacks? This is going to take a minute, and honestly, this sandwich is pretty much done." He held up the last bite sadly. "R.I.P. sandwich. You were a real one." Vrex, still standing at his console in a state of shock, managed to gesture toward the conference room. Yes, conference room Alpha. "Please." Marcus walked past the crowd of stunned academics, patting Glorbix on one of his tentacles as he went. "Don't worry, buddy. We've all had a rough Monday. Well, I assume it's Monday somewhere. Time zones in space are weird, right?" Glorbix looked down at the tentacle Marcus had touched like it had just been contaminated with something unspeakable, his life's work, his legacy, his 17 volumes of carefully researched documentation, all potentially crumbling because of one human in a hoodie eating a sandwich. The crowd slowly began to follow Marcus toward the conference room, moving like zombies in a trance. Someone in the back was hyperventilating into a paper bag. Another academic had already fainted and was being carried by colleagues. Marcus pushed open the conference room doors, looked at the long table surrounded by ergonomic alien seating, and pulled out a chair. A nice setup, very professional. You guys do a lot of meetings where you declare species extinct, or is this like a special occasion thing? Nobody answered. They just stared. Right, Marcus said, settling into his chair and placing his empty coffee cup on the table. So, about that whole extinction situation. Funny story, actually. Marcus leaned back in his chair, somehow making the sterile conference room feel like his living room. The assembled academics crowded around the table, some sitting, some standing, all looking like they just watched their entire understanding of the universe get flushed down a toilet. Okay, so Marcus began, cracking his knuckles in a way that made several aliens flinch. You guys remember 2047, right? That's when we stopped answering your calls, emails, intergalactic smoke signals, whatever you were using to check on us. Glorbix pulled out a data pad with trembling tentacles. Yes, Stardate 2047.3, your last transmission was a routine weather report from something called Cleveland. Classic Cleveland, Marcus said with a grin, always getting the last word. Anyway, here's the thing. We didn't go extinct. We didn't have nuclear war. We didn't get hit by an asteroid or succumb to a plague or anything dramatic like that. Then what happened demanded a crystalline being from the Rigel system, her voice crackling with what might have been anger or just her species' natural frequency. Marcus took a deep breath. We got really into a video game. The silence that followed was somehow even more profound than before. Video game? Glorbix repeated slowly, like he was trying to translate a completely alien concept, which, ironically, he was. Yeah, Galaxy Conquerors 2, Electric Boogaloo, dropped in 2047, fully immersive VR, incredibly addictive gameplay, and a competitive scene that made professional sports look like a casual hobby. The global tournament started about 3 months after release. Marcus paused, seemingly lost in nostalgia. Man, those were the days. Everyone on Earth, and I mean everyone, got involved. Presidents, janitors, grandmas, toddlers, once they could hold a controller. We had teams, leagues, international competitions. The World Cup of Gaming, except it lasted for 47 years straight. A slug-like academic whose name was unpronounceable raised something that might have been a hand. 47 years playing a game? Look, you had to be there, Marcus said defensively. The meta kept evolving. New strategies emerged. Alliances formed and crumbled. It was beautiful, okay? We solved world hunger purely because nobody wanted to stop playing long enough to fight about resources. Universal basic income happened because we needed everyone free to participate. It was humanity's greatest accidental achievement. Glorbix's middle eye was twitching so violently it looked like it might fall out. You're telling me that my life's work, my 17 volumes documenting your extinction, my entire academic legacy is ruined because your species was playing a game? 17 volumes, huh? Marcus whistled. That's commitment. Respect, wrong, but respect. But the radio silence, shouted someone from the back. Your satellites decayed. Your space stations fell. You abandoned everything. Yeah, we probably should have sent a quick text or something, Marcus admitted. But honestly, we figured you guys would just assume we were busy with internal stuff. Plus, have you ever tried to pause a 47-year gaming tournament? The logistics alone would have been a nightmare. We had scheduling conflicts across 6 continents in the moon base. Moon base? Vrex interjected. Our scans showed no activity on your moon for decades. Yeah, because everyone came back to Earth for better ping rates. You can't compete with a 50-millisecond delay. That's an eternity in pro gaming. An insectoid academic who'd been silent until now clicked his mandibles together thoughtfully. And the remaining 3 years of silence after the tournament presumably ended, Marcus had the decency to look slightly embarrassed. Okay, so the tournament ended in 2094. Humanity collectively woke up from the greatest gaming binge in history and looked around at what we'd done, or more accurately, what we hadn't done. 50 years of ignoring the galaxy because we were busy doing virtual spaceship battles instead of real ones. And, Glorbix prompted, his voice hollow, and we had a really long debate about whether we should just keep pretending to be extinct because it was too embarrassing to explain. Like, imagine being the species that ghosts the entire galactic community because of a video game. The memes alone would be devastating. Memes? Asked a gelatinous being who'd been quietly bubbling in the corner. Don't worry about it. Look, the point is, we eventually decided that honesty was the best policy. Well, and we noticed on our new deep space monitoring systems that about 12 different species had filed mining claims on Earth. So we figured we should probably say something before things got legally complicated. Glorbik stood up abruptly, all three eyes now locked onto Marcus with an intensity that bordered on unhinged. This is unacceptable, impossible. A species does not simply ignore the galaxy for 50 years because of entertainment. Dude, have you met humans? Marcus countered. We once had a guy spend 14 hours straight watching videos of cats. 50 years on a legendary game is honestly pretty reasonable for us. My research, Glorbix whispered, staring at his data pad. My publications, my awards, today's ceremony, all of it based on your extinction. Yeah, about that ceremony, Marcus said, wincing. Really sorry I crashed your party, but in my defense, you guys should have maybe checked a little harder before declaring an entire species dead. Like, did you send anyone to actually look, or did you just assume radio silence meant extinction? The room fell silent as the implications sank in. They hadn't sent anyone, they just assumed. 50 years of assumptions built into 17 volumes of academic work. Marcus stood up, brushing imaginary crumbs off his hoodie. Anyway, I should probably mention that Earth has been watching your proceedings for the last few weeks. We've got pretty good long-range scanners now. Had to develop them for the game, but they work great for espionage, too. You've been watching us? Vrex asked weakly. Oh, yeah, the whole funeral thing. Humanity thought it was hilarious. It's already a meme format back home. You guys are internet famous. Glorbix made a sound like a deflating balloon. Glorbix's world was crumbling, and he was not handling it gracefully. This cannot be happening, he muttered, scrolling frantically through his data pad. The evidence was conclusive. The peer reviews were unanimous. The committee approved every single volume. Yeah, but did any of you actually go to Earth? Marcus asked, already knowing the answer. We had no reason to. The data was sufficient. Glorbix's voice was reaching frequencies that were making the translator glitch. You're not real. You are a hallucination brought on by the stress of academic excellence. Marcus pulled out his phone. Okay, first of all, that's definitely not healthy. Second, want me to prove I'm human? That device means nothing, Glorbix said, though his eyes were locked onto the glowing screen with fascination. This, my extraterrestrial friend, is 50 years of human culture in my pocket. Marcus started swiping. Here's a meme from 2051. Here's a TikTok dance that caused 3 international incidents. Oh, and here's the live feed from Earth right now showing approximately 8 billion people who are decidedly not extinct. He turned the phone around. The screen showed a busy street in what appeared to be Tokyo, with humans walking around completely alive and absorbed in their own phones. Coincidence, Glorbix stammered. Computer generation, sophisticated fraud. Marcus sighed and did a quick floss dance move, the kind that had been popular decades ago and was now ironic. Then he tried to explain cryptocurrency for 30 seconds, creating visible confusion among every academic in the room. Finally, he showed them his browser history, which was exactly as chaotic and weird as you'd expect from any human's phone. No intelligent species would willingly consume this much contradictory information, declared a mantis-like professor, staring at the phone in horror. And yet, here we are, Marcus said cheerfully. Oh, I should also mention we did eventually solve climate change, totally by accident, though. Turns out when you're trying to make millions of gaming rigs more energy efficient so everyone can play at maximum graphics without melting the ice caps, you accidentally invent fusion power. Who knew? You solved fusion power for a game? Someone asked weakly. Well, technically for the game. And because Antarctica was getting annoyingly habitable, we had penguins showing up in Brazil. It was a whole thing. Glorbix collapsed back into his chair, all 3 eyes staring blankly at different points in space. My career, everything I worked for. Look on the bright side, Marcus offered. You can write a new book. Call it Oops, My Bad, a scientist's journey of being spectacularly wrong. That'll sell. A red-skinned academic with horns stood up angrily. This is outrageous. The protocols were followed. The methodologies were sound. How dare you waltz in here and invalidate decades of work? I mean, I didn't invalidate it, Marcus said. Reality did. I'm just the messenger, a messenger who's been alive this whole time while you guys were planning my funeral, but still. The room erupted into chaos. Some academics were arguing with each other. Others were frantically making calls or sending messages. A few were crying. One had entered what appeared to be a catatonic state and was just rocking back and forth, muttering about tenure. Glorbix looked up at Marcus with all three eyes filled with something between rage and despair. Do you have any idea what you've done? Survived, Marcus suggested. Thrived. Won the 2089 regional finals. You've destroyed the credibility of the entire extinct species research division. Again, I was just alive. You guys did the destroying part yourselves. That's when the conference room doors burst open and three very official-looking aliens in what could only be described as spacesuits entered, moving with the kind of purpose that suggested someone was about to have a very bad day. Marcus Webb of Earth? The lead one asked, checking a holographic clipboard. That's me, Marcus said cautiously. What's up? You need to come with us now. We have a diplomatic situation that requires immediate attention. Marcus looked at the assembled academics, then back at the officials. Does this diplomatic situation involve the fact that 12 species have filed mining claims on a planet full of living humans? The official's expression suggested that yes, it very much did involve that. Yeah, Marcus said, standing up. I figured that might become a problem. The diplomatic chamber was significantly less fancy than the academic symposium, which Marcus appreciated. Just a large round table, some uncomfortable chairs, and a whole lot of very angry alien bureaucrats wearing the universal expression of people dealing with paperwork gone wrong. Let me get this straight, said Ambassador Krell, a bear-sized alien with too many teeth. Earth was declared an open world. 12 species filed legal colonization claims, mining rights were purchased, terraforming equipment was shipped, and now you're telling us there are 8 billion humans still living there? Give or take a few hundred million, yeah, Marcus said. We've been keeping track, mostly. This is a legal nightmare, shrieked a bird-like diplomat, her feathers literally ruffling. Do you have any idea how much currency was invested in Earth development projects? I'm going to guess a lot. 17 trillion galactic credits. Marcus whistled. Okay, that's actually impressive. What were you going to do with Earth anyway? Strip mining the northern continent, Krell said, checking his notes. Luxury resorts on the southern continent, converting the oceans into deuterium fuel, the usual. Yeah, that's not going to work for us, Marcus said casually. We're kind of using all of that. A insectoid official clicked frantically on a data pad. Our ships are already en route. The Zorgon Mining Consortium has 6 extraction vessels approaching your moon as we speak. About that, Marcus said, pulling out his phone again. You guys might want to call them back. He pulled up a live feed that made everyone in the room lean forward. It showed space near Earth's moon, where 6 massive mining vessels were being politely but firmly escorted away by what appeared to be teenagers in highly customized fighter craft. Are those children? Krell asked, his voice strangled. Technically young adults, Marcus corrected. And before you ask, yes, those fighters are armed. No, they're not military. They're civilian defense volunteers who wanted more realistic space combat simulations. Turns out 50 years of playing Galaxy Conquerors makes you really good at actual space combat. Who knew? One of the mining vessels in the feed tried to change course. 3 fighters immediately cut it off with moves that would have made professional pilots weep with envy. We spent 47 years optimizing every possible tactical maneuver, Marcus continued. These kids can pull off orbital mechanics in their sleep. Literally, some of them stream while they patrol. This is an act of war, someone shouted. No, it's more like aggressive traffic control, Marcus countered. They're not shooting anyone, just encouraging alternative flight paths away from Earth. Permanently. Ambassador Krell's teeth were grinding audibly. You're saying humanity has a fully operational defense grid? Well, we didn't plan it that way. The kids just wanted to test their skills in real scenarios, so we gave them permission to intercept any unauthorized ships. They think it's training, which it is. Very effective training, as you can see. The bird diplomat looked like she might pass out. But Earth was supposed to be empty, defenseless. We have contracts. Yeah, those contracts might be slightly invalid on account of us not being extinct, Marcus said. I'm not a lawyer, but I feel like that's going to be an issue in galactic court. Do you have any idea what you've done to galactic commerce? Krell roared. The economic implications alone, look, buddy, I get it. This is complicated, but maybe next time check if a planet is actually empty before you start dividing it up like a pizza. Just a thought. A slim, elegant alien who'd been silent until now finally spoke, her voice cold enough to freeze hydrogen. This will require extensive legal arbitration. Reparations will need to be negotiated. Earth will need to formally rejoin galactic society with proper protocols. Yeah, about that, Marcus said. We have one condition for all of this. The room went silent. Everyone pretends this never happened. Excuse me, Krell said. You heard me. We rejoin galactic society. We sort out your mining claims. We do all the diplomatic stuff, but nobody, and I mean nobody, mentions the reason we were gone. No official records, no footnotes, nothing. That's absurd, the bird diplomat squawked. The public has a right to know, Marcus grinned. Do they? Do they really want to know that the entire galactic academic community declared a species extinct without checking? That 12 species tried to colonize an occupied planet? That Professor Glorbix wrote 17 volumes about our demise while we were busy gaming? The room fell silent as the implications sank in. The embarrassment wouldn't just be Earth's, it would be everyone's. There is wisdom in discretion, the elegant alien said slowly. Perhaps a simple notation that Earth chose isolation would suffice. Perfect, Marcus said, standing up. Now, there's just one more thing. Everyone looked at him warily. We're throwing a party, a we're not dead party. You're all invited? Should be fun. 3 weeks later, Professor Glorbix sat in his office surrounded by 17 volumes of his life's work, a bottle of something strongly alcoholic by his species standards, and a formal retraction letter he'd been ordered to write by the Galactic Academic Council. To whom it may concern, he typed with one tentacle while drinking with another, I regret to inform the scientific community that my previous research on the extinction of humanity was, in the most technical sense possible, completely and utterly wrong. His communicator buzzed. It was an invitation to Earth's We're Not Dead party. The theme was apparently Weekend at Bernie's, which meant nothing to him, but seemed to amuse the humans greatly. He deleted it. Meanwhile, Marcus Webb stood in the cargo bay of his ship, now significantly less duct-taped after Earth's mechanics had gotten their hands on it, preparing for departure. Ambassador Krell had just finished the final paperwork for Earth's re-entry into galactic society. All mining claims had been quietly withdrawn. All contracts had been mysteriously lost in bureaucratic mix-ups. The official record now stated that Earth had simply chosen cultural isolation for internal development. Nobody mentioned the game, ever. One more thing before you go, Krell said, his massive form blocking the doorway. What are your people planning to do now that you've rejoined galactic civilization? Marcus smiled, the kind of smile that made the ambassador's survival instincts suddenly scream warnings. Well, we were thinking of organizing a galaxy-wide gaming tournament. Galaxy Conquerors 3 just dropped, and we figure it's time to see how other species stack up against humans. Absolutely not. Too late. Already sent the invitations. Tournament starts in 6 months. Battle Royale mode. Should be fun. Krell's expression suggested it would not, in fact, be fun. Marcus climbed into his ship, pausing at the airlock. Oh, and tell Glorbix no hard feelings about the whole extinction thing. We've all made mistakes. His was just really, really public and immortalized in 17 volumes. The ship's engines fired up, and as Marcus pulled away from the station, he activated the external speakers. The opening notes of Never Gonna Give You Up by Rick Astley blasted across all communication frequencies within a 3 light-year radius. Humanity had rick-rolled the entire galaxy. Back on Earth, 8 billion people watched the broadcast of Marcus's departure and collectively grinned. They were back, baby, and the galaxy would never be the same. In his office, Glorbix heard the song, recognized it from the human cultural database he'd been forced to study, and finally understood the full depth of humanity's sense of humor. He poured himself another drink. The universe, he decided, had a deeply frustrating sense of irony, and humanity was apparently its favorite punchline. Somewhere in the galactic bureaucratic archives, a new file was created and immediately classified. Species Assessment Protocol Revision. Actually check if they're dead first. It seemed obvious in hindsight, but then again, most things did.